22 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Tuesday morning. It is time for NewsBites. This is where we take the news and we read it to you, but we don't read the whole story. What we do is we abbreviate it. We cut to the chase, get to the point, give you a chance to listen for a short while to your radio and catch up on a whole lot of news. It gives us a chance to put news back into News Talk. Usually in this segment, Robin and I will manage to deliver about 20 to 25 stories. So let's kick it off right now. We will also mention the news agency that we are reading the story from so that you can look it up and read the details. The first story is from ABC News, and it comes out of London. A former Guantanamo Bay detainee who has written a book about his time in Gitmo and campaigned for the rights of terrorism suspects was arrested today on suspicion of attending a terrorist training camp and involvement in terrorism in Syria, according to a statement by British police that was issued to the news media, including ABC News. Mozam Beg was arrested by specialist Specialist counter-terrorism police in the city of Birmingham, England, in an operation stemming from unspecified intelligence. 2 other men and a woman were arrested in the operation and suspected of facilitating terrorism overseas, according to police who say there was no immediate risk to public safety. None of the 4 have been charged. Their homes are being searched by police officers as we speak.
It turned out to be a false alarm on Friday, but there were some tense moments at Lake Mary High School when hundreds of students spilled out of the school, their hands clasped over their heads. Authorities had received an anonymous 911 call about shots being fired at the school in Sanford, Florida. The school was checked out and deputies declared there were no shots fired. A 12-year-old boy was arrested for making the call. He's facing 4 misdemeanors: misuse of 911, disturbing an educational institution, giving false information to a law officer, and making a false report in the commission of a crime. The boy waived his right to appear in court. He was released into the custody of his mother yesterday. His next court appearance is March the 10th, reported by FNN.
And from CNN, doctors are looking for more information about a polio-like syndrome that has caused paralysis in a few children in California. Neurologists have identified 5 patients who developed paralysis in one or more of their limbs between August 2012 and July of 2013. All 5 children had been vaccinated against the polio virus. Treatment did not seem to help the children regain their motor function. Samples from 2 of the children tested positive for enterovirus number 68, which is a rare virus that has been linked to severe respiratory illness in the past. Samples from the other 3 children were not collected or tested soon enough to yield conclusive results, according to Dr. Emmanuel Walbant, who is a neurologist at the University of California in San Francisco. Walbant and her colleagues will present a case report about these patients' illnesses at the American Academy of Neurology's annual meeting in late April.
Iowa Governor Terry Branstad, a Republican, says he and other governors of both parties have a message for President Obama when they met with him yesterday. Do not cut the National Guard. This is a quote from Terry Branstad. I'm co-chair of the Governor's Advisory Council to the Pentagon and Homeland Security, and the message from all the governors of both parties is do not cut the National Guard. Branstad told MSNBC's Morning Joe, we know there's going to be reductions in the Army. There's been a big buildup in the Army since 9/11, since 9/11, and now the Army is recommending major reductions in the National Guard instead of the regular Army, and we think that's a big mistake. That's the message that I'm going to bring to the President if I get an opportunity to ask a question, reported by CNS News.
And the next story is from the Reuters news agency. The Supreme Court yesterday declined to wade into the politically volatile issue of gun control by leaving intact 3 court rulings rejecting challenges to federal and state laws. The court's decision not to hear the cases represented a loss for gun rights advocates, including the National Rifle Association, which was behind 2 of the challenges. The first case involved a challenge by the NRA to a Texas law that prevents 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying handguns in public. It also raised the broader question of whether there is a broad right under the Second Amendment to bear arms in public. The second NRA case was a challenge to several federal laws and regulations dating back to 1968 that make it illegal for firearms dealers to sell guns or ammunition to anyone under 21 years old.
McDonald's is in the early stages of looking at whether it can make breakfast available later in the day. Fans of the Egg McMuffin and sausage biscuit have long wanted the option to get breakfast at McDonald's after 10:30 a.m. Offering both the breakfast and lunch menu was considered logistically impossible, given the tight kitchen spaces of the restaurants. Still, it's an option the chain is eyeing more seriously at a time when people's eating habits are changing, particularly those coveted customers in their 20s and 30s, known as millennials. Jeff Stratton, head of McDonald's USA, is quoted as saying, "We know as an example that breakfast on the weekend cut off at 10:30 does not go very well." Stratton declined to provide any details on how McDonald's would adjust kitchen operations to make breakfast later in the day. Reported by the Associated Press.
The next story is one line. It's one sentence, and it was issued 9 minutes ago. So there's probably a developing story. It says that Ukraine's former presidential chief of staff has been wounded by gunfire. Ukraine's former presidential chief of staff wounded by gunfire. It's the entire sentence. So,
oh my!
Sorry to give you such a short piece of news, but I guess that's all we have right now on that one.
Advocates for undocumented immigrants in the United States are insisting that President Barack Obama halt most deportations, saying that he is expelling people his fellow Democrats would let stay in the country. The change in tactics comes as some Republicans now support a path to legal status, not citizenship, for many of the nation's 12 million undocumented immigrants, though Republican House Speaker John Boehner is not moving to revamp immigration laws this year. Churches and labor groups, including the AFL-CIO, are using the appearance of common ground to force Obama to change policies that lead to about 1,000 deportations a day, more than under any other president. They say Obama could gain favor with Hispanic voters before the November congressional elections by easing deportations, as he did before his 2012 re-election, reported by Bloomberg.
The next story is from the Associated Press. Terribly disturbing story. A 12-year-old Pittsburgh girl who got out of her father's SUV to pose for photos with a boy after her first date with the boy was struck and killed by the vehicle she just got out of, according to police. They say her father has been charged with DUI. Police say that 53-year-old Richard Benton refused field sobriety and breath tests after slurring his words and smelling of alcohol at the scene of the crash around 8 p.m. Sunday. He was arraigned yesterday, and police say he could face additional charges if they determine he was directly responsible for Shamira Harris's death. Court records don't list an attorney for Benton, whose home phone was continually busy yesterday after his court appearance. Benton told police he thought the vehicle was in park, and the girl's mother, Carla Harris, told police Benton was messing around with the gear shifter before getting out of the vehicle to take a photo and dropping off the girl's date after a movie, according to the police report. Just a terribly sad story.
U.S. doctors are warning of an emerging polio-like disease in California where up to 20 people have been infected. A meeting of the American Academy of Neurology heard that some patients had developed paralysis in all four limbs, which had not improved with treatment. The U.S. is polio-free, but related viruses can also attack the nervous system, leading to paralysis. Doctors say they do not expect an epidemic of the polio-like virus and that the infection remains rare. Polio is a dangerous and feared childhood infection. The virus rapidly invades the nervous system and causes paralysis in 1 in 200 cases. It can be fatal if it stops the lungs from working. Global vaccination programs mean polio is endemic in just 3 countries: Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Pakistan, reported by the BBC.
From CNN, targeting alumni for donations is big business for colleges and universities, and schools are getting more savvy with their tactics. Called prospect research, the practice of targeting wealthy alumni is not new, but the tools are getting better. Complex data models using massive databases that store everything from wealth and income to class reunion attendance. Schools can now predict how likely a student's parents or diehard university sports fan is to open their wallet. They can analyze whether a fraternity member tends to be more generous than those who ditched the Greek scene. For many alumni, much of their personal financial information, such as stock holdings or credit card limits, is off limits, so they use estimates instead. But the wealthier you are, the more information there is to be found, and the more likely you will be hit up for a donation.
A former FBI agent who believes that the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated the U.S. government and that John Brennan, the director of the CIA, is a secret follower of Islam, is poised to begin 3 days of counterterrorism training with law enforcers in Northern Virginia. Starting today, John Guandolo will deliver what is billed as advanced counterterrorism training under the title of Jihad Networks in America. About 50 law enforcers from Culpeper County, Virginia, and elsewhere will attend. The event, advertised at $225 per trainee and being held at Germana Community College in Culpeper, has prompted an outcry from local and national Islamic groups, which warn that he is a notorious Muslim basher and conspiracy theorist. Islam leaders see the training session as part of a conscious attempt post 9/11 to spread misinformation about American Muslims within law enforcement circles, reported by The Guardian.
And from Fox News, Big Labor pledges it will go all in again in its drive to knock out its top political adversaries in 2014. And one of the biggest targets is Wisconsin Republican Governor Scott Walker, who is a hero to conservatives and bane of the left for his public sector collective bargaining reforms. Michael Podhorzer, political director of the AFL-CIO, in a New York Times piece last week, said the nation's labor unions look to spend at least $300 million going after Republicans in this fall's elections. Much of that spending is expected to be dropped on 4 industrial battlegrounds: Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, traditional union strongholds. Big Labor also, by the way, wants Florida.
And this is the news story we were speaking about earlier today. Arizona's 2 Republican senators have urged their governor to veto a controversial measure that gives businesses in the state the right to refuse service to gays based on religious beliefs. Senators John McCain and Jeff Flake offered Governor Jan Brewer, a Republican from Arizona, some unsolicited advice on Twitter. McCain yesterday echoed a tweet posted Saturday by Flake that addressed the issue directly. This is a quote: "I hope Governor Brewer will veto pound SB 1062. Lawmakers in the GOP-controlled State House and Senate approved the legislation last week. Brewer, a fiery Republican who has embraced controversial laws in the past, has not said yet whether she plans to sign the bill. The measure would automatically become law after 5 days of sitting idly on her desk," reported by CBS.
And from entertainment news, the ABC entertainment news, I should say, a new cloud-based digital movie service launched today, and it will allow fans to buy or watch Disney movies from anywhere on their Apple devices. The Walt Disney Studios announced the service and the app, called Disney Movies Anywhere, in a statement this morning. Through iPhones, iPads, iPod Touches, and the web, users will be able to buy, manage, and watch movies from Disney, Pixar, and Marvel from wherever they are. The premier digital movie provider for the service is iTunes, according to the statement. Disney Movies Anywhere, or DMA for short, features the company's library of more than 400 titles. Disney's hit film Frozen had its digital release today, according to the company. Disney announced that any user who activated the DMA account and connected it to his or her iTunes account would, for a limited time, get a free digital copy of its animated classic, The Incredibles.
Nice. The start of the 2014 Florida legislative session is just a week away. Lawmakers gather in Tallahassee next Tuesday. They will have 60 days to take care of business. Senate President Don Getz says one of his top priorities is the Florida version of the GI Bill. This is a quote from Getz: "We have a series of bills that will provide educational benefits, that will provide assistance with veterans getting into businesses, that will buffer our bases and make Florida, like I say, the most military-friendly state in the country." If you are a veteran, if you are someone who served our country, you are a good citizen. You give back. You get engaged in your community. You make sure your children go to school. Those are the types of people we want to bring to Florida. The military bills are on the fast track in both the House and the Senate. They could be approved before the end of the first week of the legislative session, reported by the Florida News Network.
And from CNN, a day after Uganda passed harsh anti-gay laws, a tabloid newspaper came out with a list of what it called the country's top homosexuals. The cover of the Red Pepper newspaper reads, "Exposed, Uganda's 200 top homos named," with several photographs next to the headline. The story was not available on their online edition. Yesterday, President Yoweri Museveni signed into law a bill that made some homosexual acts punishable by life in prison. He said, quote, "They're disgusting. What sort of people are they?" That was a quote he gave CNN's Zain Verji in an interview. He went on to say, quote, "I never knew what they were doing. I've been told recently that what they do is terrible, disgusting, but I was ready to ignore that if there was proof that that's how he is born, abnormal, but now the proof is not there," unquote. This isn't the first time that a Uganda newspaper has identified people that it claimed were gay. In November of 2010, Rolling Stone, a local tabloid which has no relation to the iconic U.S. music magazine called Rolling Stone, listed 100 of what it called the country's top gays and lesbians, with photos and addresses alongside a yellow banner that read, "Hang them."
The Israeli military intelligence unit is expanding to combat the threat of jihadists in neighboring Syria, officials say. The expansion comes as Hezbollah is believed to be ramping up its military inventory in the event of a future confrontation with Israel. Hezbollah is said to have some 100,000 rockets and missiles stockpiled for use against Israel, including a small number of satellite-guided weapons that could be used to target specific outposts in the event of an all-out war between the two sides. Israeli military officials told the Jerusalem Post that they are concerned about the growing number of al-Qaeda-affiliated groups who are massing out in Syria due to the country's 3-year civil war, and increasing intelligence to combat those forces in a high priority, reported by UPI.
And the world is volatile right now. In Venezuela, this story from CNN, as Venezuelan opposition leaders push for demonstrators to stay in the streets. "He who tries loses" is their mantra. Lilian Tintin de Lopez, the wife of jailed Venezuelan opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez, held up a T-shirt showing the phrase before protesters yesterday. Beside her, opposition leader Enrique Capriles called for demonstrators to keep demanding change from the South American country's government, and described President Nicolas Maduro as an error in the history of the country. Outrage at soaring crime and tanking economy triggered protests earlier this month. Tintori called for a new demonstration Wednesday, asking women to march silently in peaceful protest, wearing white and carrying white flowers for each of their children, for the future of our children and grandchildren. On their arms, she told them to wear black bands because we are in mourning for all those who have fallen in recent days.
Carrie Kennedy, the niece of the late President John F. Kennedy, is in court today for a drugged driving trial, hailing from a 2012 highway crash near her home outside New York City. Kennedy, age 54, says that she mistakenly took the prescription sleep aid Ambien instead of her thyroid medication, which caused her to fall asleep at the wheel. Kennedy hit a tractor trailer, continued to drive to the next exit, where she failed a sobriety test. The misdemeanor case is being heard in state Supreme Court, where a jury will decide whether Kennedy took the drug accidentally. Her defense attorney argues that her outfit at the time of the crash, gym clothes, supports the claim because no one would intentionally take a sleep aid before working out, reported by ABC.
And the next story is from ABC News. Royal Caribbean is riding high on the waves after a leading travel organization distinguished it as the first official autism-friendly cruise line. The announcement is the latest acknowledgement of a growing number of autism-friendly travel offerings industry-wide. When you think about accessibility on a cruise line, you often think about physical, visual, and hearing disabilities, according to Ron Petty, who is the manager of ADA and accessibility compliance for Royal Caribbean International. He went on to say, "But we want to make sure we are offering services to all of our guests. When we noticed a trend a while back with the land-based hotels and movie theaters offering more autism-friendly programs. We immediately wondered, well, what can we do about it on the seas? Since then, the company has been working to incorporate programs on their ships with amenities that follow guidelines provided by Autism on the Seas, the leading travel organization catering to vacationers with autism and other developmental disabilities. Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
Good news once in a while does make its way into the news, right?
It does. It started as a kumbaya moment of bipartisanship. A group of Democratic and Republican governors gathered at the White House talking to reporters about common goals and working together. And then possible Republican presidential candidate Governor Bobby Jindal, a Republican from Louisiana, stepped to the microphones. Jindal blasted President Obama for slow-walking a decision on the Keystone Pipeline and trashed his proposal to raise the minimum wage. This is a quote from Jindal. This president and the White House seems to be waving the white flag of surrender. The Obama economy is now the minimum wage economy. I think we can do better than that. I think America can do better than that, reported by ABC.
And from the Associated Press, President Obama has reached out to House Speaker John Boehner for a rare one-on-one meeting between the political rivals. The Democratic president and the Republican speaker plan to meet privately in the Oval Office midday today. It will be their first meeting alone in the White House since December of 2012, when they failed to reach agreement on tax reform and spending cuts during deficit reduction talks. The two men have spoken by phone and met as part of a larger group in the past year, but their relationship has been one of mutual criticism over fiscal issues and policy, particularly Obama's health care law. Aides to both of the men say they plan to discuss a wide range of topics on the legislative agenda and that Obama initiated the meeting.
Earlier this month, Zach Terzini roused himself about 5 minutes before his English class began and did not panic. Instead, the high school sophomore grabbed his iPod and checked on a class discussion of the autobiography of Malcolm X without even getting out of bed. A snowstorm, another one, had canceled classes in the Pascatic Valley Regional High School District in northern New Jersey, but educators and students would not be taking a day off. Before the snow fell, even before the official cancellation call, teachers were prepped, parents were warned, and students had received enough assignments to fill a snow day. School leaders around the country are tearing up their calendars to cram in more teaching time after extreme numbers of weather cancellations. Some are eliminating holiday breaks and professional development plans, adding minutes and days to the school clock, or even cutting recess and opening school on Saturdays, reported by CNN.
And imagine if one of the stories in today's News Bites went something like this. This edition of News Bites is brought to you by, and then we named your business, and then we told people what you do, and then we invited people to go see your business and see you for whatever it is you specialize in. Imagine if your business was mentioned live on News Bites as part of this show. You can advertise on News Bites. You can advertise on any of the 24 hours in the 24-hour day here on WOCA. Here's how easy it is. Come into the station at the Paddock Mall, just outside of the food court. Speak to one of our sales executives, and he or she will explain how it's done and how we can help you get business through your doors. Robin, how many stories did we cover today?
25.
All right, 25 stories. Not bad. That's usually our max. We'll take a little break and be right back with Carol Ann Baldwin.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. Extreme weather continues to test the patience and resilience of Americans from the Midwest, where temperatures plunged 40 degrees in just over 2 hours, to northern New England, which is seeing wind chills well below zero. A common painkiller may pose a health risk to unborn babies. A new study suggests acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, can raise the risk of ADHD in children years later by affecting hormones that impact a baby's brain development. Even statues wore masks in Beijing as local residents silently protested the air pollution that spiked for a sixth straight day. Photos posted on the internet show much of the city's skyline obscured. Cameras will be allowed in the courtroom in South Africa when Olympic blade runner Oscar Pistorius is tried for murder, but there will be restrictions on filming witnesses. Defense lawyers had fought cameras, saying they'd ruin his chances of getting a fair trial. Taco Bell. It's what's for breakfast? Taco Bell is taking on McDonald's in the battle for your breakfast bucks by pitting its taco waffle against the Egg McMuffin. This is ABC News.
I'm standing on a ledge high in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I swear I can see forever. Green in the spring, dazzling colors come fall. Part of why I'm here is to preserve this. I am 1 mile of CSX railroad track. There are 21,000 more like me. Together, we help trains move a ton of freight nearly 450 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. Tomorrow is full of promise. Let's keep it that way. CSX, how tomorrow moves.
Look, kid, when guys like us walk into a facility in the morning, we can smell a problem. No one needs to hand us a work order. We already know it. Today, for instance, we need a new gearbox, 6 globe valves, and a dozen ballasts. And when I smell a problem, Grainger smells that I smell a problem. They help me keep this place up and running. Now that's the kind of smell I like. The sweet smell of success. Get it? Got it? Good. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets.